Well, good morning and welcome to East Ridge Church of Christ. We're glad to see you here. If you're visiting, we hope you can stick around so we can meet you and get to know you a little better. And hopefully you'll come back and visit with us again. We're going to be starting a summer quarter on Job. And I hesitated to teach on Job because I have so many questions about Job, more questions than I have answers really. So maybe together we can learn more about what it is that God would want us to know about this great book. Job has perplexed me a lot in the relationship between God and Satan. Am I doing this wrong? Obviously I am. What's wrong with my clicker? Is it not on? It's not on. There we go. How about that? Let me turn it on. There we go. Okay. So, what is it about Job? Well, there's a lot of questions about the book, actually, and scholars, we pretty much know it was written during the patriarchal age because of the way Job was acting priest for his family. He offered sacrifice for his family. He was very old, like all the other patriarchs, and there's no allusions to the law of Moses in the writings, and basically the family structure is more like a family clan, much like Abraham, than of the latter times of the Old Testament. So we know that it was the setting was written or about, he lived during the patriarchal age. We can pretty much know that. What was the character of Job? This man was blameless and upright, feared God, and shunned evil. Character of Job is tremendous, really. How would God describe your character, my character? How would He describe us? That's a good question. I think one of the main things we can learn from Job is his character and how strong of faith he had. We're going to read about all the tribulation that Job goes through. If you were to go through half of that, what would your faith be like? I don't know. Mine would be shaken, I can tell you. I would hope and pray that I would have faith strong enough to remain faithful. But to go through what Job did and still be faithful is a tremendous testament to him and his character. How would your associates, your friends, your family, your children describe your character? Would they've seen you in times of stress. They know, you really can't hide your character to your family because they see you for who you really are. I can hide my character from you. You only know me from what you see here on Sunday morning, Wednesday night, Sunday night. Sometimes when I'm working around here. But you don't really know who I am. My kids know who I am. They've seen me in good and bad. times of stress and tribulation in my life. They know who I am. But see, y'all don't really know who I am. God knows who I am. See, God knows my character. Because He knows my heart. He knows your character. He knows who you truly are. It's funny how we hide and we have different faces depending on where we are a lot of times. Who we're with. But see, God really knows who we are, doesn't He? He knew who Job was. He knew him. He created me. He created you. And He knows you. He knows your heart. He knows who you really are, what you really think about, what your real desires are. He knows what you battle. He knows what your shortcomings are. He knows what your weak spots are. And He still loves us. Despite who we are. Doesn't He? That's great. That's awesome. I'm glad He loves me despite who I am. That is a blessing. And I hope I never forget that. You know, let's read Job 1:1. It says, there was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was blameless and upright, and one who feared God and shunned evil. Would you like that God to write that on your tombstone? That'd be awesome, wouldn't it? It's an honor for God to think that of us. To think that of Job. It's almost as great an honor as He bestowed upon David when He said he's a man after God's own heart. Man, what an honor to be for God, the creator of our universe, to say that about a man. You know, and David wasn't perfect. You know, he wants us to be perfect, of course, but He knows we're not going to be. And He knew when He said that what David would wind up doing the course of his life. And He still said, David, you're a man after my own heart. So it's really about our heart and how much we love God. And that relationship that we have and the faith that we have and reliance on God. When times get tough, do we give it to the Lord? Do we say, well, you know, you just go out and handle that. I can't do any more. All I can do, I'm doing all I can do, and then the rest is up to you. Or do we just keep worrying about it and keep stressing over it and keep tormenting ourselves? Because, you know, there's only so much you can do. You know, and we're going to see, you know, Job is on top of the mountain. He's got it all, man. He's got it all. We know people like that, got it all. Or your life is going well, you know, everything is going good. And then bam. You can be swept off that mountain in about 1 second. All it takes is one little misstep. Physically, mentally, emotionally. You know, our lives are very fragile. Look at Job. It says, and 7 sons and 3 daughters were born to him. Also his possessions were 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and a very large household. So this man was the greatest of all the people in the East. He was the wealthiest person in the whole eastern part of the world at that time. He is on the mountain. I mean, he's got it going good, doesn't he? We have to be careful not to enjoy material things. Not even that. We have to be careful not to fall in love with the world, with a lifestyle. I don't know if you've seen that series called The Chosen. I think about this a lot. Nicodemus in that movie, they portray him as, he wanted to go with Christ. He wanted to follow Christ, but he couldn't do it. Not because he didn't believe he was the Messiah, because his wife and he didn't want to give up their lifestyle. They were comfortable. He had a position. And he had wealth, enough wealth where he didn't have to worry about it. He didn't want to give that up. And he didn't go. How often are we faced with a similar situation where we can do something great for the Lord, great for our brothers, sisters, great for our community, but we don't because we don't want to give up a lifestyle? It's tough. I'd say most of us are a lot like that. Because we love the world. Generally speaking, we're in love with the world. I tell you, when you're not in love with the world, is when we're suffering. If you're having suffrage, you're not in love with the world then. You're wanting to be with God then. So there is something to be said for suffering. Our life is frail, man. I'll give you an example. My dad, great health, 83 years old, doing awesome. Was walking to his truck the other day, a week ago, about 2 weeks ago now. Tripped over a curb, fell, broke his eye socket 4 places, broke his hand in 2 places, over 40 stitches. That quick. Life changed. You're feeling fine. You go to the doctor. When you start to feel a little bad, you go to the doctor. Cancer. That quick. Somebody in your family does something stupid. That quick. Your life can be changed that quick because of a decision, just an accident, whatever it may be. Choose to sin, choose self, choose God. It's all your choices. But we're frail. Our body's frail. Our life is frail. Our wealth is frail. I mean, you got money invested in the stock market. Somebody spreads a rumor, boom, you got nothing. 2008, COVID hits, boom, your stock is worth nothing. It's come back, good. But it can be taken away tomorrow. I mean, your wealth is frivolous. There is no guarantee of tomorrow. It can be taken away in a flash. We got, people make a decision that affects you way down the line and have no idea. It can be taken away. So, remember, when we're studying Job, how frail our life really is and how much we should be grateful of what we do have. Because if it is good, God gave it to us. It's His. It's not ours. This world is His. He doesn't need our money. We need His blessing. It's His money. Everything we have is His. And He can take it anytime He wants to. He's God. Our health, same way. Be grateful that you have the health that you do have. But it can be a lot worse. We know people right here that sitting next to us a year or two ago, they're dead. Or in the hospital. Or they're losing their mind. It can all happen just in a split second almost. You know, we really don't know it until we get something taken away. We don't really appreciate it. We don't appreciate what we have until something that we had and now we don't have is gone. Some of us are looking at, down the road not far away. You don't think anything about getting in your car and driving down the road, do you? Hey, someday that's going to be taken away. Sooner than later for some of us. Then you're going to be relying on somebody to take you somewhere. I mean, just all kinds of stuff. Our life is free. How do you view Satan? You know, the relationship here where Satan comes to God and says, yeah, he's faithful and blameless because you're protecting him. Let's read some of that. Verse 4. And his sons would go and feast in their house each on his appointed day, and would sin and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with him. So it was when the days of feasting had run their course that Job would sin and sanctify them, and he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, it may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts. Thus Job did it regularly. And there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. And the Lord said to Satan, from where do you come? So Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it. Then the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil? Satan answered the Lord and said, does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not made a hedge around him, around his household, and around all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work on his hands. His possessions have increased in the land. But now stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. You know, Alan was talking this morning about sin. And do we grieve some things sometimes that we give up or we lose and that we had, and because we don't really see Satan for who he is. We don't really see sin for what it is sometimes. How do you view Satan? Do you view him as this terrible, evil being that wants to take your soul to him with hell? Or do you view it as a culture and a part of culture? And sin is really not sin. It's just, it's not that bad. We compare it to each other. We compare sin, our lives, our obedience with each other and with the world. And we compare the world to other worlds. And a lot of times we embrace sin, don't we? We brush up against it. We try to get as close to it as possible because this is really what he's more like. We don't recognize him a lot of times because he looks like a sheep. He looks like us. When the temptation comes rolling down the street or coming through the TV or through the internet, because we don't recognize him, because he don't look like this right here. He looks like this right here. A wolf in sheep's clothing. He makes it look good to us. So we want a little piece of that. We want a little taste. We want to try it out. Say, hey, it's not that bad. Everybody else, everybody's doing that. It's not a big deal. Why can't we do that in worship? It's no big deal. Why can't we do that in our classrooms? Why can't we embrace society? Oh, the Bible doesn't really mean that. It says it, but that's not really what it means. So we start twisting it up. Wolf in sheep's clothing. Oh, it's no big deal to miss church. It's no big deal. Oh, that movie, that's fine. It's not a big deal. Everybody does. Everybody listens to that. Everybody watches that. That's the way we roll. Think about what comes across our TVs now and our phones and things like that as opposed to 50 years ago. You'd be knocked in the head by your mom and dad if they saw what you was watching, probably. We embrace it. We let it filter into our lives, man. Do we really try to be holy like the Bible tells us to be? No. Probably not. Because we want to sugarcoat everything. We want to make it look better than it really is because wolf in sheep's clothing. Culture has impermeated our soul, so to speak. Do we really view Satan evil, despicable, hurtful, vengeful, hatred, cunning, a roaring lion? Have you ever been to a zoo and been up next to a lion? You have no chance. You got no chance. I mean, if that lion wants you, man, it would get you. I mean, there's very few people in the history of the world who've been able to fend off a lion. I mean, them things are massive. And they're so fast. It's unbelievable if they wanted to get you. I mean, there's this movie about these two lions in Australia. They were building this bridge. But anyway, it shows a true story. They killed 30, 40 guys. They were killing just for sport of these lions. They eventually killed them with guns. But my point is, if that lion wants you, it's over like that. And that's the way Satan, he's a roaring lion. We don't see him for what he really is. And here he is, trying to take down Job. Trying to take him down. But God knows Job, like I said. He knows his character. And he really knows who he is, just like he knows who we are. So, God allows it. He says in verse 12, the Lord said to Satan, behold, all that he has is in your power. Only do not lay a hand on his person. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. And then Job starts losing things, people, possessions. Man, it's hard. He says, now there was a day when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And a messenger came to Job and said, the oxen were plowing, the donkeys feeding beside them, when the Sabeans raided them and took them away. Indeed, they have killed the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. And while he was still speaking, another also came and said, the fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them. And I alone have escaped to tell you. And while he was still speaking, another also came and said, the Chaldeans formed 3 bands, raided the camels and took them away. Yes, and killed the servants with the edge of the sword. And I alone have escaped to tell you. And then again, while he was still speaking, another also came and said, your sons and your daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And suddenly a great wind came from across the wilderness and struck the 4 corners of the house. And it fell on the young people, and they are all dead. And I alone have escaped to tell you. Can you imagine losing all that in a lifetime? Much less all at one time. Well, you know, the possessions, I mean, that hurts, but that's not that big a deal. I mean, yeah, it hurts. But when you lose, I cannot imagine this. I really cannot even put myself in there to fathom losing a kid. Cannot imagine the pain that you would feel. Some of you have, and maybe experienced that, or know people that have, and are very close to it. I can't imagine. Because the first thing you would say to yourself if you were a Christian or a believer is, why did you let that happen? You were going to ask it. I guarantee you I would be asking it. Why? Wouldn't you? I don't know. I mean, I guarantee you I would be asking it. I would be praying to God, why did you let that happen? And you know what? There is no good reason. And we don't understand it. We don't understand it. That's the bottom line. Everybody can tell you this and that, but we don't understand that. We don't understand how God works with that. Because God knows. He's omniscient. He knows the future. And He understands what you're going through. And He allows death in this world. Why? Because Adam and Eve sinned at the beginning. And it's part of it. Death is coming for every single person in this room unless Christ comes first. So, and we have no right to life, period. That's another thing we got to think about. We have no right. It's like a kid in my room said, Coach, I got rights. So I said, no, you got no rights. In my classroom, you have no rights. I'm the only one who's got rights in here. Be quiet. No, we don't have any rights to life. We have no rights. We don't deserve to live. We deserve to die. We understand that, right? We have this thing all messed up in our lives, in our mind. It's a blessing. Every day you wake up and you can breathe a breath, that is a blessing from God. That's a blessing from God. Not that you have the right to breathe. You don't have the right to live. You don't even have the right to be born. God takes care of all that. So when he takes a life, that's his business. That's his business. We have trouble accepting that, don't we? Because we feel like we have rights. We do. We understand that. We think, well, I got the right. My kids have the right. Yeah, and compared to that heathen over there, they shouldn't have died. But I don't know. Maybe God knows. I don't know. Yeah, compared to that hoodlum over there that's sinning and raping and pillaging and all this stuff, yeah. My kid should live. That guy should die. But that's not how God works. It takes tremendous faith to trust him. It's easy to trust him when you're on that mountaintop. Yeah, God's blessing me. I'm good to go. But what about when you get knocked off that mountaintop? By sin or by Satan or by your choices. Where are we then? Job is at the bottom of the barrel right here, man. Think about that. He has lost everything in his life that's important to him. And that could happen to us, man. Could. There's people, everybody has their cross, man. Every single person in this room has their cross to bear. We all have problems. Some are greater than others, especially in your mind. But the bottom line is we all have problems. Because we're human, and this is earth. And it's not heaven. And there is Satan, and there is evil, and there is sin. And it's how we react to that shows our character and our faith in God. So, Job says, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised. That's tough, man. That's great, though, that he has that faith. Could we? Do we trust God enough to have that kind of faith? I've seen it by some people in this room, so I know it can be done. I have seen it from other people outside this room. Tremendous faith. They have my utmost respect. I want to look at this, though, because it's important. In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. But see, because God does no wrong. God does no wrong. Satan was behind this. Evil was behind it. Is it a sin to blame God for wrongdoing? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Job did not sin right here. Could he question God? And he will. On down, yes. But that's not sinning. That's showing our weakness somewhat. But see, because who are we to complain about the suffering, man? Do you see this? This is just a picture, of course. But can you imagine? Everybody should watch The Passion of Christ. Why? Because it gives you a pretty good visual of what it was really like to be sacrificed and die on the cross. Man, it's hard to watch that. I mean, that's the most violent thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And to know that Christ, who was perfect, sinless, obviously did not deserve that. He put himself through it for me. Does Christ know about suffering? Yeah. To leave heaven was suffering. I mean, he left heaven to come be a lamb for me and for you. Do we take that for granted? Do we ever take that for granted? We don't think about Christ on the cross when it's something we want to do, that it's not right, do we? We block that out of our mind. Because it's Wayne that wants to do that. I'm selfish. Yeah. Jesus knows a whole lot about suffering. Every time we sin, he suffers. Job 2 starts off Satan coming to him again. God bragging on Job. Satan says, yeah, but skin for skin. Yeah, all that a man has will he give for his life. There's a big difference in dying and suffering, though. Isn't it? I take a bullet a lot quicker than I go through a bunch of suffering long term. You know what I mean? Like, just shoot. You know what I'm saying? I'll dive in front of you for a bullet so I can go quick. But I'd have to lean and carry it out over a year or two, man, suffering. Rough. I don't know if I can do it. I have a living will, you know what I'm saying? Don't resuscitate me. I don't want to go through all that. You know, that's just me. Yeah, I think there's a big difference between dying and suffering. So Satan went forth in the presence of the Lord and smote Job. Man, he came on down on him, son. He had boils. You ever had a boil? Man, they're nasty and they hurt bad. Like an infected hair type thing, like boils up on you, man. You can't even touch, you can't even look at it. That hurts. Woo! Don't look at that. That hurts. Man, they can get so bad, like, oh my goodness. And he had them from his foot to the crown of his head like that. Can you imagine having those kind of sores? Oh, you can't even move that hurt. Like, I'm talking about excruciating pain here. And he had them from the bottom of his feet to the top of his head. You just think about that. You can't lay down. You can't roll over. You can't walk. You can't move without being in terrible pain. Ooh, it's gross. Just think about it. You know, and they're just swelling up on you. Just, you know, you need to lance every one of them just to relieve some pressure. And have you ever suffered? We probably all suffered some, right? We probably all suffered some. But not probably to the extent that old Job is going through. And then definitely not to the extent that Christ goes through for us. Went through and continues to go through. What about mental agony? You know, you cannot get out from under something. You just keep pressing on it. And pressing on it. A kid, a job, a bully at school, or just something that just keeps pressing. It will not let you go. Depression, anxiety, these types of things that just mental anguish over and over and over, and they beat you down. Jesus knows about mental agony. Here he is in the Garden of Gethsemane, a few days before he's going to go the crucifixion of the cross, and his sweat is like drops of blood. He's in so much agony. You think he was dreading that? Yeah. Can you? He knew what it was going to be like. I mean, it's just hard to imagine, knowing that that's coming. And there's going to be about 24 hours of the most physical agony you can imagine coming. And you fixing to have to go through it. For something you didn't even do. For you and me that's not even going to appreciate it. For all the world that's not hardly going to appreciate it. I'm going to do it though. Why? Because my Father wants me to. Here he is sprawled out, prostrate on the ground, praying to God to let that cup pass from him. He knows about mental agony. That's why we can pray to him. There are some people in here that know about mental agony. But here's what you can get comfort from, is that Jesus understands. Jesus understands. Then we read on here, and then, his wife comes up to him. She's not very helpful, is she? What kind of supporter are you for people? Are you positive or negative? What kind of supporter? You know, some people won't support you, but they come and they're just negative about it. They don't give you any encouragement. We'll start there next week. I appreciate you being here, and hopefully have a great week, and you won't have to do any suffering.